Here I have my 2011 Mustang GT, and I had a problem arise recently where you can kind of see this headlight is filled with condensation. This one over here is fine still. So what I'm going to be doing today, I'm going to be pulling off the headlight. If you're doing aftermarket headlight installation, it's the same method, but obviously you're just not going to put the stocker back in. So in order to pull the headlights, you have to pop off the whole front bumper, lay down a towel or an old sheet or a rag, something just to prevent it from getting all scratched up when you put it down. You'll see I got the hood pop. That's going to come up in a minute. First thing you'll notice is there's these pop rivets. And then back here in the corner too, you want to pop those four out. To remove the cover to the radiator, you also have to pop these out of the grill. There's four more there, and then that should be it. Once you pop those out, this whole radiator cover will come off. After that, have your wheel turned all the way to one side or the other. There's a couple bolts down here that you're going to have to get to turn the key, turn all the way to the other side and get the other side of the car. I'm going to go do that now. Start with the top and then get the side bolts, and then we're going to go from there. In order to take everything off, you're going to need a 7, an 8, and a 10mm socket, and then to pop the plastic rivets on top, I'm just using a flathead screwdriver. What I'm going to do now is disconnect the bulbs from the back of the headlights on both sides and from the fog lights as well. In a dramatic and horribly embarrassing turn of events, the reason my headlight was not sealed was the bulb itself was loose. It was not properly twisted in and was just sitting in the back of the housing. So that makes my job a lot easier as far as replacement, but I still need to cook out all this old water, get it dried up. So either way, the front bumper still has to come off the car. Make sure you also remove these tabs up top on both sides of the front grille. I'm not positive whether or not they're connected, but I'm not going to find out now. I'm also going to remove these tabs on top of the headlight on both sides. So depending on how much you're doing, this might be enough for you. For me, this is all I need because I can get into the bolts under here. However, if you really want to fully remove it, I don't know if you're running brake line ducts, which would probably come through here for most setups. There are some clips, and it looks like 2 bolts there at the bottom. Right there. So you'd have to get under the car, pop those out. But because all I'm doing is the headlights themselves, this is where I'm going to stop. So these 2 bolts holding in it on the bottom, you got one there and then one over here. Those are both 10mm. I'm going to pop those off. This clip is what keeps this thing in right now, so don't remove that until after those are pulled off. Then when you're ready to remove the whole assembly, pop the top clip again using the flathead screwdriver. So as you can see here, it's not a small amount of water in this headlight, it's quite a bit. What I'll do now is I'll drain this out, oven cook it, and go from there. At this point I've shaken out most of the water in the headlight. As you can see, it is still quite condensed. So what I'm going to do is go preheat my oven. Most people use about 200 degrees. Some people just say leave it out. If there's any watermarks, we'll have to try to wipe it out and redo it. Because I got enough water in here, and I especially did before, I took the headlight housing, I rotated around all the edges to see if it was leaking out anywhere else, and the rest of the seal is good on my headlight, so it was all coming in here through the back. Because of that, I don't have to reseal this. If you have a leak in the sealant itself, what you're going to have to do is put up the oven to about 250, and then after a couple hours, when the sealant softens, you compress it back together. Since I'm only going to dry, my temperature is a little bit lower. My oven's set to about 175, 180. You can go 200-ish if you're comfortable with it. Other people put their headlight outside for a few days, or they'll leave it in sunlight to have it evaporate quicker, with the risk being direct sunlight will have it evaporate so quickly that you'll get the drying marks from the water evaporating, and you'll still see that. Also, if your headlight is leaking from somewhere around the seal, what some people do is they'll take a clear silicone caulk, and after they've resealed it and pressed it back together, they'll just re-bead the outside of the whole thing all the way around. If your car is having that issue, I recommend you do both headlights at once while everything's apart, because chances are if one's degraded to that extent, the other one's probably not too far behind. With my headlight on my official Ford Racing Parts baking pan, I'm now going to place this whole assembly in the oven, and we're going to let it cook for a few hours. While your headlight is oven cooking, if there's anything else you want to do while your bumper is off, I recommend you do it now. If you're setting up something like brake ducts, get a Dremel tool kind of cut out here, and then you can run it straight through the back to where your rotors are. If you're slapping in a big ass turbo system or supercharger, cut the bumper support a little bit. You know, put your big intercooler right there in the meantime, pop out this lower guard. Or if you're broke like me, what you do is you don't touch any of that. You wipe off some of the dust in here, and then you will get your headlight back on. Headlight's looking pretty good. It's pretty much clear of water. I've turned off the oven. I'm gonna let it slowly cool off with the oven cracked, but there's enough heat still in it that any residual water that I didn't see that I might have missed will still dry up in the meantime. So now you can see it in the sun. Headlight is entirely dried out. So now what I'm gonna do is pretty much put everything back on in the reverse order and put the car back together. So there you have it. The bumper's back on. Everything's lined up pretty well. And my headlight is nice and dry.